Your child isn't broken, the environment is mismatched. If ADHD and autism look worse at school, it's because the system isn't built for your kid. Today, the data, the failures, and the parent-led plan that actually fits. This is the Parent Educator Project. Grow yourself to grow your kids. I'm Dr. Blake Willard, founder of the Homeschool Mastery Group, and let's get started. Schools aren't neutral, and for many neurodivergent kids, they're mismatched. Classrooms layer noise, lighting, constant transitions, and incompetent support on top of ADHD and autism. Homeschooling doesn't remove worldview or expectations, it aligns formation with your family's values and lets you build a sensory smart, relationship safe program where your child can grow. So let's get into a snapshot of some of the big issues that we're talking about today. ADHD in America has absolutely skyrocketed in the last several decades. There are approximately 7 million kids who have been diagnosed with ADHD. That's 11.4% of the population of children, which is up about a million more students since 2016, according to the CDC. There's a lot of reasons, possibly, why this number is skyrocketing, but it is alarming. An additional million students, right? This is just a subset of the population, and on 1 million additional cases of this issue in less than a decade is something to be concerned about, right? So I think there are more connections being made to environmental factors as it relates to ADHD. And there are circumstances where ADHD is something, let's say, that's genetically rooted, but there's no way that our genes have changed so drastically that the numbers have skyrocketed many exponential points higher than where they were several decades ago, meaning something from the outside is affecting our children today. And regardless of that, we need to learn to be more effective as parent educators to respond to this condition in our children. Right? There's a lot of things that could be the reason, but the goal for today is simply to affect positively those who are struggling with this right now to create environments where our children can start to prosper. And then let's talk about autism. 1 in 31 8-year-olds identified in 2022 as having autism. 1 in 31. That's a lot of kids. 3.4 times more common in boys. Okay, so if you have a child and you're concerned that they may be somewhere on what's called the spectrum, it's worth at least going in and doing some initial testing, not to put a label on them, but to find out who they are and where they are and what's going on. Because if we don't, this is going to lead to further issues. Again, autism is skyrocketing today, and we just don't want to be uninformed as to the way that is not only affecting us, but the people around us, because this is a growing issue. And more, when I talk to people about homeschooling, this is a number one issue for a lot of families that they are bringing up. Another concern is chronic absenteeism. It's still elevated, right? Kids are not showing up consistently to school. And we have to think post-pandemic, like what's going on. Part of it is just engagement. Kids are struggling to be engaged. The environment is not necessarily drawing them in. And so, especially when we have children with autism or ADHD, the resistance to going to school is increasing as the environment is not always helpful to those struggling with these conditions. And then on top of that, you stack special ed capacity being incredibly thin. There is a huge teacher shortage in public schools nationwide, and this is especially true in the special education departments. And with this problem persisting, we have ongoing vacancies in classes, we have undercertified placements, and so not only do you have children who need additional higher levels of care, but then there's less people providing the care and less qualified people doing it, which is creating exacerbated problems that's worsening for many families. So if the model can't flex, symptoms often look worse, and we as parents need to know how to respond to create a better solution for our kids. So why don't we talk about why the school model often exacerbates ADHD and autism specifically? Well, there's sensory overload, harsh lighting, unpredictable noise, crowded rooms. Research links lighting and color to behavior in autistic kids. Noise disrupts attention when it comes to children with ADHD. There is so much stimulus going on in and out of the classroom within a school. There's so much change. There's uncertainty. There's flickering lights. There's loud noises. And you pile all that together with children that are especially sensitive, And it's no wonder that they're being triggered and having a hard time staying rooted in not only learning, but just getting through the day without having some kind of behavioral, outburst. There's constant transitions. Again, all kids, but especially kids with ADHD, show more hyperactive behavior during transitions than during desk work time. So why are we surprised if we have a child having been diagnosed with ADHD that we're getting constant calls home or letters home from the teacher that they are acting out, right? Is it behavioral? Is it that your child is bad? Or is it, again, that we're forcing expectations on a child who is, in a sense, being set up to fail? And then there's risky responses to dysregulation. There's restraints, there's seclusion, and these are disproportionately used on students with disabilities. There's a report by the Department of Justice and the Department of Education that's continuing to put forth warnings about this use of force and discipline against children who have these special learning circumstances because, again, the school system is not always able to respond correctly to the needs of these children, and they look at some of their dysregulation as behavioral problems rather than correctly identifying them as something directly related to stimulus or their condition itself. And unfortunately, when it goes wrong, it leads to lawsuits and investigations. There's been a number in Connecticut, New York, Michigan, Virginia, related to students with autism being restrained, right? And if you think about, if you have a child with this condition and you think about when there's stimulus and when all the things are start to build up, it can lead to re- explosive and even violent outbursts at times. But it doesn't happen without warning. And oftentimes in public schools, children are showing the signs, but they don't have people competent to know how to recognize them to help to regulate and bring down and de-escalate the situation to actually protect the child, not only from themselves, but from the things that may happen in an event where things go sideways. So crowds, bells, flickering, constant change, then punishments for melting down. That's not a child problem. It's a context problem, right? The context that they find themselves in, often within public education. So let's talk about why homeschooling often fits better. Well, we can control the environment. And this alone is a huge factor for so many kids. I was talking with a family recently, and the mother's son is autistic, but he was becoming suicidal in public school. And it's not because of bullying or a lot of the social pressures that other children struggle with. It's because of the stimulus. It was the lighting, it was the constant change. They were moving his seat, they were taking away his sense of security. And that anxiety was building to the point where he felt so stressed out that he did not want to exist anymore. It's a terrible story to consider, but think about it. If you have children who are exceptionally sensitive to stimulus, to change, to needs for security, and you're constantly taking those things away from them, it is going to eventually blow up. So, this visual clutter, again, light, noise, hard tasks in your child's best hours, right? This is tough. Um, so there's a lot of things that we can do. One of the things, that is huge both for students with ADHD and autism is just adjusting the lighting and adjusting the noise, right? Having pink noise or brown noise, you may not have heard of those, but they are at a certain frequency that helps to regulate our kind of our hormones, our capacity to think, uh, and this can be really helpful for a lot of students, including students with autism. In some cases, noise canceling headphones make a big difference, but the point is to start to soften the sense of the sensory overload to make them able to start regulating. Now, this may not be the kind of thing that you feel like you want to have going forever. But when you're creating a learning environment for your child, you can cater the environment so that the learning can be the most productive. Because again, the point of me playing, let's say, brown noise in the background while we do our formal education is not because they need a coping mechanism. It's because I want to eliminate the things that are external to our goal and make it so that they can focus as best as possible on what it is that we're working on at hand. Um, yeah. And then, one of the things, especially for children with ADHD, movement is medicine. Right? Meta-analysis show that physical activity helps with attention and inhibitory control and social functioning in children with ADHD. It's super easy to build into a home learning environment, right? Instead of 47 minutes locked in one place for a class and then a brief transition before another long period of sitting and formal instruction, 20, 25 minutes, we can build 5 minute, physical windows of time to go outside or time to regulate, time to run around. And even like if you can just tell that your child is so fidgety, you can just stop them and take a movement break. And it will not harm you and it will bless them. And the learning environment will be better if you are adapting it to the needs of your children. And homeschooling just melds with this so perfectly. It's hard to compare because, to be perfectly honest, a teacher can't just say every time they see a fidgety child, all right, let's all stand up and go outside. It's understandable, right? There's just too many children to have to regulate. But one of the advantages of homeschooling is it's now brought down to the individual level. So you really can personalize to the needs of your children, especially our children with autism and ADHD. All right, we have more flexibility with pacing. There's fewer transitions. Again, if your child is having a hard time regulating, we don't want to keep slamming them with more change and more change and more change. You don't have to do as much in any given day, and you can help them get more out of the day. And I think one of the things that we need to hear as parents with children with learning differences or who are neurodivergent is that we need to adjust our expectations to fit the needs and the abilities of our children. They will grow a greater capacity that will accelerate with time. But if we never build their capacity, then they're never really going to learn in depth like we hope to see them to. So that means it's okay if instead of 5 different subjects a day, you do 2 or 3. And instead of, going from this thing to this thing and having all these different transitions, all right, let's try to center them in one place where they feel comfortable and bring to them the materials that they've been working through, and we're building on a greater capacity as we slowly implement and build momentum before creating the next expectation. It just makes a huge difference. Now, this is um, more parent reporting. There hasn't been a ton of formal studies done in this area, but there is enough kind of anecdotal information coming out to show that when it comes to homeschooling, parents are experiencing calmer kids, fewer meltdowns, more learning when homeschooling because it reduces stressors. It obviously is going to reduce bullying, and a lot of the things that are the external factors that are affecting our neurodivergent children are being positively replaced or affected by creating a positive home learning environment. And again, early evidence is showing that small studies suggest equal or better progress with low student to adult ratios, meaning less kids compared to the adults that are with them is going to show greater success. I think just anecdotally, we don't really need research to tell us this. I know that if I can have one-on-one time with a child who's struggling versus 30 to 1 time with a child who's struggling, the one-on-one is gonna win every time, right? I used to work with at-risk youth, and we had 10 high risk boys at one time, often just me. And I had to manage this with something called group work to be able to help everyone work through their problems as we try to positively move forward. But let me tell you, if a child was really struggling and I could spend 5, 10, 15 minutes with them one on one, that single activity could completely reset them for their attitude, not only with me, but with every single person in that group. One on one time is a powerful tool, and I think we need to be aware of how much we can give our child when we just give them more of ourselves. So, a couple of stories. The transitions kid in school, 5 room changes before lunch is leading to meltdowns, right? At home, we've got a block schedule, 1 room, we've got a visual schedule, sudden drop in behavioral incidents. So, we shouldn't be surprised when we take out all the change and uncertainty and we stop having so many meltdowns, right? I'd be willing to bet if this time where your children are coming home with reports of outbursts and restraints and tantrums and fights, and then you bring them home, if you start to see all of these things drastically reduce, if not fall off altogether. Why is that? Because we're creating an environment and a schedule that supports them rather than fights against them constantly. It's so important. right? If you think about the sensory kid, the child who's extremely sensitive to stimulus, whether it be audio, visual, um, kinetic, like when the lights are constantly flickering, when children are tapping and making noises, when the PA system is constantly going off, chairs are scraping on the floor, all of this can grate against our children with autism. It's leading to shutdowns, it's leading to stress and anxiety, blow ups in different times. So, what can we do at home? We can have a lamp and daylight, right? A soft visual environment, soft surfaces, predictable soundscapes. I know, like, we think about landscapes, but for a lot of our autistic children, we need a soundscape that is predictable. They know the environment that they're going to go into and the noises that they can expect to hear without constantly coming in from the outside out of nowhere, because those things are all jolting to them and can dysregulate them. So, and then for the child who's the mover, right? That fidgety child, instead of having to be stuck in one place for nearly an hour at a time, we can, I mean, our children with ADHD, we can learn standing. We can learn outside. We can stop when necessary and take 5-minute activity breaks. When I had movers in my class, um, I told them, like, hey, if your desk isn't like the sitting at your desk isn't the best place or way for you to work, you can sit under your desk. You can stand at your desk. You can sit on top of your desk as long as you can keep it all 4 feet of it on the ground. My concern was, how do we enable them to do what best serves their ability to learn? And that's our concern as parents, right? Is your goal for them to sit at a desk, compliance, or is your goal for them to learn? And I think schools are mostly looking for compliance more often than not. But parents are looking for learning and for outcomes. And so focus on the outcomes and don't let the school's mindset affect the way that you teach your children, okay? So, how to build a neurodiversity ready homeschool. In the event that you are a homeschooler or you're thinking, oh my goodness, I think we need to move into homeschooling because my child needs this. Let me tell you, there's a lot of parents who didn't feel like they could homeschool their neurodivergent children because of the challenges that go along with the condition, all the stories they've heard from the outside. And then they actually sent their children to somewhere where there's special education programs and supposedly all these resources. And they could see very clearly and very quickly their child regressing, withdrawing, pulling away, blowing up, distancing themselves, having more outbursts. And so they're like, I think we need to homeschool. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're in the place where you've gone through these systems and it's tearing you and your children apart, and you see we need to homeschool. So let's talk about how to actually go about doing that to create the environment that's going to set your child up to be successful. Well, I say this whether your children are neurodivergent or not. Start with your mission, your values, and your goals. Get really crystal clear on who you are as a family and where you're going. Your mission is your end goal, it's what you're aiming for. And you can incorporate your child's challenges and identity into that. And then do the same thing with your values. Like, what are words that will govern your decisions, that will protect your child from the things, the stimulus, the outbursts that will happen in another environment, right? You can value in your home peace, diligence, and joy, and highlight those things and draw those out so that we create a positive environment that is consistent over time while where we build our children's capacity. And then you can, because we get to set the goals, we as parents get to define success in our own terms for our children, right? You know, we have grade levels in our brain sometimes. And you know what? Grade levels are extremely arbitrary because every child at every subject is in a different place. So to say I have a fifth grader and expect that they are at fifth grade level across all subjects is not realistic. So let's look at the capacity of our child, not only in given subjects and learning areas, but with regards to physical maintenance. Like, can they sit still for 30 minutes? And if not, maybe we aim as our goal for 15 minutes of consistent, diligent work followed by a break. And we build capacity and we slowly over time build that to 20 and then to 25 and to 30. Will your children learn to regulate as they grow older? Yes. If we create an environment that enables them to build the skill and the capacity, you can do that. So set goals that you can reach and look at those as mile markers on your journey where you've made progress and you know that you're actually being successful. One of the things that stresses homeschoolers out is they don't know if they're successful. Well, if you set goals that are reachable, you have something to look back on that you've done, and you also have something to look forward to that you're moving towards that guarantees that you are making the progress that you need to as a family. Okay, and then design the environment. Soft lighting or lamps, natural lighting, have windows open, be in a bright space, but reduce visual clutter. Have like a quiet base, a go-to location where we don't have dishwashers and laundry machines and dogs barking and all the different places, or noises that can come into the home. Let's try to have at least one area where if our child needs it, they can have an audio cool down or a visual cool down to create for them a sense of calm and peace so that they can regulate, so that we can learn together. And then a noise plan, right? It may not be something that you want to use all the time, but there are plenty of instances, especially for children, really with ADHD or autism, but especially autism, where headphones may be appropriate. And there's noise canceling headphones, not to live there all the time, but to know all the stimulus affects them. And I'm going to help them by cutting it out for a period of time until they can bring their heart rate down and start to regulate and feel comfortable entering back into our learning space. All right. And then use a visual day. You can have cards like first, then, the card that shows them first I do this, then I do this, right? Start to lay out for them visually what is expected and how to be successful. And that allows them to, again, to gain control, but also to consistently look at the things that are governing their day. It helps them manage expectation, and it helps smooth transitions when those times come. Again, a visual schedule or color-coded blocks, things that we have as templates within the Homeschool Mastery Group. There's a lot that you can do to bless your children in the learning environment to make it easier for them with regards to change. And then teach once and assess levels. Maybe you need to go through the same lesson, but adjust the expectations based off of what they're learning. Or you can have older children helping serve the younger children as lead learners or as a TA. Basically, just knowing that you don't have to do everything, but you can teach the lesson, maybe to everybody, and then set expectations and then get them in the environments that they need to be in to be successful. For one child, it may be standing with a clipboard and pacing back and forth throughout the house. For another one, it's a cool, calm environment where they're kind of eliminated and isolated from some of the distractions. But basically, once you've taught the content, you can kind of launch each of your children and get them in the environment that helps them best move through their work together. And then bake movement breaks into your schedule. You have your child with ADHD, allow them to run around and celebrate it. Invite everybody to participate in them at the same time. And don't force yourself to have these long learning periods, right? 90 minutes a day is enough. So break that into 25 or 30-minute periods where you're fitting activity and breaks in, because children, especially with ADHD, will be able to regulate so much better if you will just give them the movement that they need and desire. Um, Man, there's so much more that we could talk about, but I think we're getting at the main idea. So we're gonna skip ahead here. Our goal here is to help really facilitate your ability to adjust expectations as a parent educator, learning that the freedom and the flexibility is in your hands, so you don't need to carry the expectations and the rigor and the schedule of a traditional school environment into your home. If it wasn't working there, remember, that's why we chose to homeschool. So we have to have different expectations for what is going to be successful. Again, we get to put success in our own terms. So if you define success as everything they're doing in a public school, maybe you should just go to a public school because you're recreating an environment that didn't work for your child, right? So instead, let's set reasonable expectations and be willing to adjust them as necessary, responding to the needs and the concerns that we have for our children as we build capacity for greater success. And then define appropriate outcomes. Again, 57-minute period of sitting down reading maybe is an unreasonable expectation, but can we do 10 minutes of reading time? you know, Focused and unbroken, and do that independently without falling into dysregulation, right? If we can have 10-minute moments of success, celebrate those for what they are, and then try to get another 10 minutes somewhere else, and try to get another 15 over here. And again, build capacity. You're going to hear me continue to say that, and celebrate the micro wins, right? We don't have to just look at our big goals. Set a goal for the day, right? We're going to go through this subject. I'm going to be joyful, and I'm going to help my child gain one insight, have 5 minutes of focus, have 10 minutes of independent thinking, facilitate a positive conversation where they're thinking critically about the ideas we discussed. Whatever it is, set a goal that you can reach today and walk your child along that journey. And again, set them up for success by communicating with them the expectation and the goal and celebrate when they reach it. Okay. And if they don't, get a plan for what you can do the next time so that they can be more successful in the next one. We have a ton of resources about the kind of different topics and the studies we've discussed today. If you guys are interested in learning more about this, obviously dive in, do more research. But the point is are we creating an environment for our neurodivergent learners, for our children with autism and ADHD and all the different conditions that schools struggle to handle? Are we creating conditions for them to be successful? So if this is your family, I would highly recommend don't copy someone else's homeschool. Build yours. Start your free trial of the Homeschool Mastery Group today, where we can talk through your mission, values, and goals, the Neurodiversity-Ready checklist, F and attitude rubric, multi-age templates for teaching all of your children at the same time. And then we have weekly Q&As where we can personalize your plan to make your homeschool work for you. Again, just because you're doing the right format doesn't mean you're doing it the right way for your family. Your family's needs are unique, so let's build a program that uniquely fits those needs in order to help you and your children be successful. Again, thank you for checking out the Parent Educator podcast. And if you guys loved what you heard, like it, share it, save it. Again, there's so much here for so many parents, and you probably know them better than we do. So share what you're learning, share these resources, and know that we are here to support you in this journey. If you want to take advantage of our free trial, definitely check the description below. There's a link where you can get a 7-day trial of the Homeschool Mastery Group to see what personalized support and building a custom homeschool program with coaching and with community and with all the resources to make the process easier, to see what that looks like for you. I have found that parents who invest in themselves have a fuller cup to pour into their children. And you may have children today that you feel like need to be poured into. So if that's you, click the link and follow along for the next show.